Hey everybody, welcome back to Tim Travels. It's Thursday night. We are in Winslow, Arizona. And just a couple of things about Winslow. It was famous before 1971, before the Eagles song Take It Easy, which by the way was the first song on the A side of their debut LP. And it was here and flourishing because it was a railroad town, right? This is the intercontinental, or transcontinental, I should say, rail line that belonged to the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railroad that ran through here. And it still does. It's just run by BNSF now, which is kind of the merger of Burlington Northern and Santa Fe a few years ago. And, or heck, it's been a minute. It's I don't even know how old that merger is. Maybe 20 years old now. But anyway, Winslow was here. It was a kind of a depot for the railroad. A lot of these towns along the railroad existed because they had to constantly put water and coal or coal oil in the trains back in the day, the steam engines, and those boilers on those engines required lots and lots of work, and so there were shops everywhere. With the advent of the diesel age, it kind of slowed the amount of maintenance that they needed, and so the shops here in Winslow closed, and it's kind of just a, like a whistle stop. There is a hotel here in town that's historic, and people do still come and stay at it. I think Amtrak will stop here, but yeah, the interstate coming through and kind of bypassing town, because Route 66 ran through the middle of town, and then the closing up the shops and everything kind of put Winslow on the path that it finds itself on today. But there's still some good food, especially Mexican, in this area, because I've gone downtown and had some food and hung out a little bit. So we're stopped here at Walmart. Paul's inside doing a little shopping. I'm gonna do a little shopping here in a minute. But I did want to talk about a kind of a touchy subject almost, and it's how do you have a roommate in an apartment this small? And lots of people talk about like the physical or the logistical aspects of it, how you use the bunk and where people put their stuff and everything. But there's also a big psychological aspect to it. And having been in the military and being in tight quarters with people, you kind of have to adopt certain ways of thinking and doing things, or being around people, especially people that you're not used to, will make you a little bit crazy, and it'll bug you. And one of the things that I've been thinking about is you have to give each other space, both physically and kind of like in terms of interaction. And one of the things that I think is important if you're teaming with somebody is some time apart. Even married couples need to not be right next to each other all the time. You need a little bit of independence. You need a little bit of, just your own thoughts. You don't have to hold up your end of a conversation or talk to anybody. Now, it's also important that you do communicate. I left Paul at a truck stop one time. That was just a lack of communication. But even when you're just rolling over the road, and we've been going pretty hard the past, week or so, we picked up in Yuma on Sunday, went to Ohio, and then we're going to be back in California in the morning for a delivery. And, obviously we ran out to Arizona to begin with. But, when you start spending a lot of time with people, little things will start to become more noticeable and apparent. And it's okay to make a mental note of them, but you got to just get over it and, not dwell on it. Paul is my third co-driver. I've had 3 co-drivers, and each person brings a different personality, a different perspective, different life experience. So if you're going to be a trainer, you have to be prepared for that. Another part of it that I think is important is being a little bit malleable. And what I mean by that is you need to be able to adapt your behavior to the situation. So people learn different ways, and it's important to, respect how people learn. And of course, they do a pretty good job of talking about this in the Prime Driver Trainer course. So those are just a couple of thoughts, about how to get through things. And I'm going to share a few other thoughts about personal space and personal safety here in a minute. Okay, so part 2 of having a roommate. So by the way, we're in Southern Cal. We're out here in the Inland Empire out in Ontario. We dropped our load down the road a little bit ago, and then we're picking up this afternoon over in Riverside. And I looked on the map, interestingly, and where we're picking up is right down the street from the Riverside National Cemetery. And so on a personal note, I have an uncle that is buried in that cemetery, and like me, he was a chief in the Navy. Unlike me, he well, this is a little bit of a funny story. So for years, I thought my uncle was older than my father, because my uncle was in the Navy before my father was in the Marine Corps during World War II. And, they both volunteered. Neither were drafted. But what I learned, even after my uncle had passed away, is that my dad was actually the oldest kid. He just finished high school, whereas my uncle got my grandfather to sign the papers when he was 16 for him to go in the Navy. And so he was in the Navy from like 1943 until 1976. And he passed away from non-Hodgkin's, or Hodgkin's disease, I guess. So it's been a while, but he passed away in like 1980, late 80 or early 81. So he didn't experience a lot of being retired from the Navy. So, but he's buried at that cemetery. So just an interesting side note. But anyway, so we're picking that load up. It's going to New Hampshire. So hopefully they'll have the roads plowed by the time we get up there. Might get to say hi to Fred, our friend in Massachusetts. We're going right off of 91 up by Brattleboro, Vermont. Oh, wait. Well, Brattleboro is in Vermont, but it's across, but we're going to New Hampshire, so it's like across the river. So, getting back to what we were talking about earlier, I read a summation of a report that was recently issued by the Women in Trucking Association, the WITA. And they did a survey of around between 700 and 800 women about their attitudes regarding, same gender training on trucks, which is another way of saying their attitudes about not training with the same gender. And only about 8% of truckers are female in the United States. I'm sure that's higher at Prime. Well, actually, I'm not sure. I mean, we have a lot of women truckers, and it's a very inclusive company. But some of their recommendations were kind of like no-brainers. But other of the recommendations might kind of be impractical, or are easily worked around. So one of the recommendations is that they have a policy that says that if you're a female, you can train with a female. I don't know, candidly, I don't know why a female would want to join a company if the company doesn't have any female trainers. But the kind of the corollary to that, and I'm calling out my female colleagues. The best way to get more women in trucking is for the women that are in trucking to be willing to train. It's easier when you're a male to get trained because there's lots of male trainers. Even though, there might not be tons of males training in general, there's still a big enough pool for you to find a ride. Whereas if a woman doesn't want to train with a man, then that's a really limited universe of trainers. And so I think it's incumbent upon women to help out other women who don't want to ride with a guy. And one of the other recommendations is that, women train in day cabs, which is a great theory if you have a company that runs day cabs and wants a driver with zero experience and has a training program. It seems to me like a lot of the companies that have day cabs, want experience. So it's, they're looking for people that already have experience and not people that are needing to be trained. Because a lot of times day cab is just, it's go, go, go. It's pickup and delivery jobs. It's LTL stuff. It's not, it's not what we do over the road. But so I'm not sure how realistic that is for a lot of companies. But the other thing I would mention is this, and I'm going to come back to this with some of their other recommendations. But one of the things I would say is this: just because somebody's in a day cab doesn't mean that the trainee, the female trainee, won't feel uncomfortable. You don't have to have a sleeper for somebody to be doing something wrong. So I think that's kind of, it's an okay idea in that they wouldn't have to sleep in the apartment, because they feel vulnerable. But it still doesn't mean that guy can't be a scumbag while they're driving around the local area and create a hostile, threatening work environment. So, that's a thought on that. The other thing that they recommended, which I actually have done, is have a camera in the truck that also records sound. The problem I see with that is that a lot of people, I'm not one of them, but a lot of people that drive trucks are vehemently opposed to cameras that record in the cab. Notwithstanding that I've said this on numerous occasions, and I stand by it, that your company can record you surreptitiously if they want to. There's no, the Supreme Court has said, courts have said, there's no expectation of privacy at work when you're working. So when you're sleeping, they can't really have a camera over you watching. They can't watch you while you're going to the bathroom. But when you're up here with your hands on the steering wheel or sitting in the seat beside a trainee, then, or even if the curtain's open, you're at work, right? This is your workspace. So that's one issue I see with that idea. The other thing is this: people that are predators, men that are predators, will find a way to do things even when they know they're being watched. Pedophiles do it, sexual predators do it, And so I'm not sure that recording is going to, it's not going to stop it. I'll put it to you that way. It's not going to stop it. It might catch something. And you know, maybe the camera keeps people, you know, it keeps, you know, people from not doing things that they otherwise might do. I don't know. But here's the bottom line for me. And you know, I've had 3 trainees on my truck. I've had 2 men and a woman. In each instance, I respect the privacy of those individuals, right? And as I mentioned earlier, you know, giving people space. You know, the driver that I trained that was a female is now, she's been upgraded. By the way, congratulations to her. I got a text from her recently. She's upgraded, she's doing tanker. She finished out her training with a female, but she and I had a solid trainer-trainee relationship, and you know, I didn't do anything that made her feel uncomfortable. And as a trainer, you got to make sure that people feel comfortable on your truck. So, you know, if you're doing this, and I don't care whether you're a male training just men, a male training men or women, female doing just female trainees, or a female doing, you know, both genders, it's incumbent upon the trainer to kind of set the expectations. And you know, I've worked with women in the military, in, you know, close quarters. I've worked, you know, I had most of the people that worked at my law firm were women, including my wife and my daughters. 2 of my daughters worked there, one full-time, one part-time. And, you know, I value the relationship with all the women that I've worked with a lot. And, you know, it's just part of my id or whatever. You know, I just want to be professional, and I want people to feel comfortable around me, even as I do my job and, you know, call the shots sometimes or make some rules or whatever. I had female subordinates and superiors and peers when I was in the military. And I could tell you, and then I was on the staff at the Naval Academy, so I've had hundreds of women that I've taught and counseled and, you know, lectured about stuff in various capacities in training environments too. And you know, if you're that guy that, you know, just can't keep his hands to himself, you just cannot stop your brain from transferring stupid ass things to your mouth to say, then don't train. You know your limitations. And don't put a good person who wants to start a career and become a truck driver in a position where they have to fear going to work or being at work, and they suddenly, this dream of theirs of becoming a truck driver and becoming independent and maybe owning their own business turns into a nightmare. That's not okay. And you know, I would tell any guy to his face, it's not okay. And you know, so just know your limitations. If that's not something you can do, then don't do it, right? We don't need you. We don't need you ruining somebody's career before it really even gets started. And we certainly, and you know, I mean, and just to put it in, you know, terms that maybe people will understand, I mean, do you really want to go to jail? Because that could easily be the result. You end up in jail. Depending on the state you're in, it doesn't take very much. And, you know, getting sued. And by the way, let me also say this. there's this mindset amongst truckers, men truckers, that, you know, women will just, you know, play the sexual assault card, you know, if they don't like you, or if they don't, you know, want to do training with you or something like that. My experience, again, in the military, in private industry, where I had female lawyers that worked with me who certainly, you know the law and could get something done if they really wanted to. And in this industry, I've never had anybody ever, even people that I fired, even people I yelled at. I mean, you could ask Connie. I yelled at her a bunch of times. Maybe not yelled at her. I didn't scream at her, but I was definitely very forceful. Like, no, you did that wrong. You can't do that. She didn't get angry with me. She just took everything on board. She was a great trainee. If you think that women are just out here to, you know, like, I don't know, catch you in a trap, again, don't train. There might be somebody like that, but if you do the things like I did, I put the cameras in and the video or the audio recording to protect myself and the trainee. And, you know, just don't do anything that can be misinterpreted, you know? And by the way, even if, I'm going to say this, and this is, I'm going to throw the term fraternization out there. Even if a trainee wants to have a relationship with you, and this I include all, you know, two men, a man and a woman and a man, two women. If a trainee wants to have a relationship with you, you must decline. That's being a professional. Even if you really like them, you must decline. And if I was in a position where I wanted to have a relationship with somebody, let's say that I really liked that person, I would tell them, look, let's keep this part professional. Let's find you a different trainer. And then you and I, after you're trained and you know, you need to focus on what you're doing, then we can figure out if we're going to have a relationship. But having it a personal relationship, a personal romantic relationship, while that person is being trained, that is a recipe for disaster. And I don't care if everything is consensual and all that. It's still asking for trouble. And that's coming from me, the lawyer. It's coming from me, the Navy chief, who, like I said, had lots and lots of women working for me over the years, and worked for women even when I was single. You know, I worked, you know, I had junior officers that I worked for, and, you know, it's just not worth it. There's a better way to find somebody to be in a relationship with. So anyway, I share that with you. You know, I think training's important, but, you know, a lot of times I feel like there are people that end up finishing training and they're not really as good and proficient as they need to be. But it's not because they didn't want to be. It's because they were uncomfortable in the trainer's truck. They were sleeping with one eye open, or they just, you know, when somebody feels like it's dangerous for them, even if the other person doesn't perceive it, that's going to be an impediment to learning. That's going to be an impediment to learning. And if you're training, you owe it to your trainee to not ever create that impediment. So anyway, good luck sharing your apartment with a roommate. Yeah, we'll catch you next time on Tim Travels. Bye.